It may be just the preseason, but we got a very exciting preseason game between the Kings and the Warriors that went to overtime. I know some people are like, why do we have overtime in preseason? But guess what? If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. I love getting some free basketball, getting to see, guys who are on the edges of the rotation or the young guys getting to play more. So I'll always be down for overtime, whether it's summer league, preseason, it doesn't matter. I'm always here for it. But the Kings dropped to 0-3 in the preseason, losing this one 121 to 115. But of course, in preseason, result doesn't matter. And this game makes me pretty confident coming into this season about where the Kings are at. For the through the first two games, it's like I kind of saw the Kings getting there, getting back to where the offense was last season. But this game makes me extremely confident about honestly both sides of the ball. And so let's talk about the starting lineup change. We had Chris Duarte inserted into the lineup for Kevin Huerter. Unfortunately, Duarte did go out with an injury in this one. I think it was a knee injury, maybe a knee on knee kind of action or something like that. I think that's what it was. And so hopefully that's not bad. But in the 12 minutes that Duarte did play, I thought he was awesome. And even before the game, like, a few days ago when we learned that he had been practicing with the starters and that he was going to start, it was just something that I'd never thought about. Like, everyone's always talking about the Kings making starting lineup changes by bringing guys in from the outside, by making a trade, but not really thinking about it from the roster that we have, right? Everyone's kind of set on the five we have. And I'm not saying Kevin Huerter's lost his starting spot, because I don't think that's true. But when I heard Chris Duarte starting for Huerter, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, this could be something that we see. Chris Duarte was a guy that was starting for the Pacers when he was healthy. And obviously, the Pacers weren't a good team. So, starting for a bad team. But, he's at the caliber where he can start in the NBA. And he brings a lot defensively. I loved immediately him just getting super physical with Klay Thompson. And I know Mike Brown loves that. And I think the Kings, of course, this offensive powerhouse, but struggling defensively. I think Duarte for Herder could make a lot of sense because Duarte is still going to be out there as a 3-point shooting threat. He can still, like, he had a couple plays where he was getting into guys' bodies and taking middies or layups. Not all of them went down, but like he still can add something offensively, but he's just such a better defender than Kevin Herter. And it's something that this team needs. And you already have Fox, you already have Sabonis, you already have Barnes, and then you have Keegan Murray, who's just pretty much taking all of the shots that Kevin Herter would normally take. You're just giving more shots to Keegan. I think maybe it makes more sense instead of having five guys out there that all should be getting a lot of shots. You can take one out, move him to the bench, and put a more defensive guy on the wing. But Chris Duarte can do enough offensively that I just don't think that'll impact the offense that much. If you put like a guy like Kessler Edwards in there, then maybe the offense takes a bigger hit. But I think Duarte is a smart player, can hit the three. And so you're not giving Duarte the shots that Kevin Herter was shooting. You're giving Duarte some catch and shoot shots. And then the shots where, Kevin Herter was coming around screens and stuff, you just give those to Keegan Murray, or it's more touches for Harrison Barnes or Fox or whatever. But then that obviously changes the bench. And so it's kind of interesting to have Davion, Monk, and Herter all off the bench. And now again in this game, we kind of had the rotations where it's you have the starting lineup playing together and you have the second unit playing together. And obviously in the regular season, it'll be more mixing. It'll be more Fox out there with the second unit, and then he goes out and Sabonis comes in, right? And so that'll help things. But running a lineup of Davion, Monk, and Herter out there, And then we also had Sasha and Lyles as a small ball lineup. It's a lineup with a lot of shooting, a lot of spacing, but not the most playmaking. Like Monk's a solid playmaker, especially in the pick and roll, pick and pop with Lyles, but he's not going to be out there doing what Fox or Sabonis are doing in terms of attracting attention. And so the offense definitely could go a little stagnant, and it did. And, Kevin Huerter was missing shots. Vezenkov was missing shots from outside. Davion couldn't hit a shot. So it was just that unit struggled offensively, but they didn't give it all back defensively. But I mean, they were playing against the Warriors' second unit, who are also smaller. And so it'd be interesting to see how that second unit would hold up against a bigger team. But like I said, you're not going to be having a full 5-man bench unit out there in the regular season rotation. And so I personally, after seeing what we just saw, hopefully Duarte's okay, I'd be totally fine starting Chris Duarte. And honestly, this just makes me think more about how this Kings team probably needs to make a trade for just a bigger wing defender. I mean, we've been saying that, but I think if Chris Duarte can continue to play well, that makes Kevin Huerter expendable because you don't necessarily need him off the bench. Like, Huerter is an amazing shooter and adds a lot to this team, but I think it would just maybe be more valuable to add another wing, or maybe that's someone else that gets traded, but I think it is a little crowded at the guard spot at the moment. And obviously nothing needs to happen now. So we'll just see how that continues to develop, once we get into the regular season, because things could totally change, and none of this really matter once the season actually starts. But that starting lineup looked really good, especially in the first quarter, coming out, knocking down a bunch of threes. Sabonis was taking, the revenge game personally against the Warriors, against Looney personal. He was grabbing every rebound, hitting threes, hitting outside shots, doing pretty much everything that people criticized him for not doing in the playoffs. He did against, Looney. And if Sabonis can be that threat from outside, then this Kings team is extremely scary. But it's probably not consistent. We need to see it be consistent before we can really, say anything about that. But I did think the rebounding was pretty good for the Kings. I thought Keegan Murray was good rebounding the ball. I think he allowed one offensive rebound. Mike Brown laid into him, and then he was good from there on out. Always helping on the boards, grabbing 6 boards. I would have liked to see more from him offensively. We saw his normal threes and he was knocking them down, and that's great. But I would love to have seen the Kings get the ball in his hands a bit more. It was just, a lot of Fox and Sabonis doing the scoring and playmaking, which is great and all, and it looked great. And, that makes me confident about the offense coming into the season. But, it's preseason. I want to see Keegan Murray out there. You had the Warriors going out there with Jonathan Kuminga playing. How many minutes did he play? He played 34 minutes, just giving him the ball every time, seeing what he could do. And I would have liked to see the Kings do that a little more with Keegan Murray, because you saw it with Kuminga. It didn't look great all the time, but at times it also looked really good. Jonathan Kuminga was just running at the rim, getting every foul call. He shot 17 free throws, which is the same as the Kings' entire team. Jonathan Kuminga kind of physically reminds me of Ben Simmons. He's just a little less talented Ben Simmons out there. But yeah, it wasn't always pretty, but it's preseason, so it doesn't matter. So I want to see that, in the next couple of preseason games for the Kings. I just think the Kings starting unit looked a lot better defensively with Duarte out there, and I think that they looked just fine offensively without Huerter out there. So I think positive stuff from that group. And then, like I said, with that bench unit, in previous games, I was talking about how I wanted to see Lyles at the 5, Sasha at the 4, and we saw that. And it provided the spacing that we needed, but the guard play wasn't the best in terms of running the offense. And so I would like to see maybe Fox out there with that group and see what would happen then. But I think clearly against smaller opposing lineups, that lineup can be effective with Lyles at the five and Sasha at the four. You just don't want Sasha out there guarding a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, who's super athletic. Because at times that was the matchup that did not go well, and then we were like, oh, just put Monk on him. It's like, no. It just, you know, I don't think in the regular season we would let those matchups happen. Davion had a really rough game offensively. I mean, I thought he was good defensively, but I always say that, so that's nothing new. But he went 0 for 4, missed badly on his three, was hesitant going up at the rim. Just not great offense from him. Kevin Huerter off the bench, like I said, he was missing shots, but I did think he did a pretty good job of getting inside, getting to the mid range, or getting inside to score from there. And he's usually pretty good at that. I did think he looked a little bit more comfortable with the bench unit for some reason, but maybe that was just me. Sasha was just struggling with his shot. Also, just looked like he had to travel once, which I was kind of surprised by because I'm like, in EuroLeague, it's even stricter, so you would think he would never travel, right? But he just took a step before he dribbled, and then he went out of bounds on one play when he caught the ball and just looked a little out of sorts. But he had a really good rebounding game, so that was good for him playing the four, right? And it was nice to see Malik Monk actually attack the rim for once. He immediately, when he came in, attacked the rim and made a tough layup. And I'm like, that's why I want to see you attack the rim, because you can finish like that. And you're a really good finisher. And then of the other guys in the regular rotation, Harrison Barnes had a solid game. Didn't do too much offensively, but when the Kings were not scoring at all in the second quarter, he came in and got us a couple scores there. And then in came the deep bench to finish out this game in at the end of the fourth quarter and in overtime. So we had Colby Jones was in there, Keon, Alex Len, Jalen Slauson at one point, Jordan Ford, Jalen Noel, all those guys saw minutes. Keon Ellis, he went off. He caught fire towards the end to force OT, going 3 for 5 from three. I think he made those three in a row at one point at the end of the fourth. But not only that, he also had 3 blocks. I guess, yeah. I was wondering if they were crediting those as steals or blocks. They gave him all blocks, but it was those strips down low that he was making as the Warriors went up, and he was doing it in clutch situations, and that's what he's good at. His hands are super good, so he can, like Davion, defend up in size because he uses his hands so well down low, and he just needs to be able to hit his threes, and he was doing that in this game. So if he can consistently do that, I mean, there's no room for him in the rotation. But to become an NBA player, that's what he needs to do. Colby Jones also looked really good. He missed all 3 of his threes, but other than that, he made 4 out of 4 from inside the arc. His finishing looks really good, and that's something that I noticed in Summer League. And he was making a lot of smart plays. And just every time I watch him, he seems like such a solid player that's going to be a rotational player in his career. Just probably not this season. And then just touch on the last 3 guys. Jalen Slauson. I always like his defense. Like every time he's out there, I love what he gives defensively and just athletically running in transition. He's a really exciting athlete to watch. And so he just needs time to develop and hopefully develop a 3-point shot, because that's probably going to help him a lot. Just like any of these deep bench guys probably need to develop 3-point shots if they want to be rotational players in the league. But he is definitely an exciting athlete. Jordan Ford had that nice layup at the end to force overtime. And Jalen Noel came in and immediately just didn't know the situation, which is that like, oh, that made me cringe so bad when he just came in with point 0.7 on the shot clock, caught it, and clearly didn't know there was point 0.7 and just drove to the rim. Shot clock violation. And I'm just like, man, for a guy that's trying to earn a roster spot to like come in and not be ready, that is rough. I know it's only one play in a preseason game, but it's like you come in and that's your only chance, right? And you just don't know the situation. And then he missed all three of his shots that he took. So a really rough one, rough 6 minutes for Noel. And I guess I didn't really mention what Trey Lyles did, but I said the spacing was good with him as the five, and that's because he was knocking down threes, 3 for 6 from three, trying to carry that bench unit, which he usually tries to do. You have Monk out there as the guard, kind of trying to carry the offense on the bench, and then Lyles out there as the big, trying to carry the offense on the bench. For me, I'm just really excited about what we saw from the starters and that new starting lineup, because obviously, the Warriors weren't playing Steph, weren't playing Draymond, but it's got me excited, not because it's necessarily anything new, but just because, I saw the offense of last season at the start of the game here. And so that's got me excited for the regular season. But also they were better defensively, which is new in this one with Duarte. So, signs of potential there with a new lineup. And then I'm excited for the potential of the bench unit when they are out there with some starters as well, when it's a better overall lineup, a better balanced lineup, possibly with Lyles at the five. And I am just so ready for this season to start. And so are Kings fans. I mean, there were over 17,000 at a preseason game. That's pretty funny to me. I don't know if it was sold out, but that's pretty close to being sold out if it wasn't. But anyways, that is it for this game and this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back when the Kings play their next preseason game, which is against the Warriors again, I believe on Wednesday. And so I will be back to recap that in the Kings' second to last preseason game. So I'll see you then. Peace.